Remember that the TEKS for solving quadratics expects students to be able to solve them in 4 ways: factoring, taking the square root, completing the square, and using the quadratic formula. And in Unit 8, students use factoring and the zero product property to solve quadratics. They also started taking the square root of both sides of an equation to solve simplistic quadratic equations. Now, Unit 9 focuses on completing the square and using the quadratic formula. In this section, Section A, students encounter perfect square trinomials and notice that solving a quadratic equation is pretty straightforward when the equation contains a perfect square on one side and a number on the other. They learn that we can put equations into this helpful format by completing the square. And by rewriting the equation where one side is a perfect square, it's easy. Looking at the lessons from an instructional point of view, the first lesson reviews the process of solving quadratic equations by taking the square root of each side of a simple equation. And it also refreshes students' understanding about the process of factoring perfect square trinomials. If students don't need this refresher, it's an opportunity for you to compress the amount of time needed for this lesson, because coming up for students is what I think is one of the most complicated processes for algebra students to learn, and that's completing the square. So here it comes. You ready? The remaining lessons in this section focus on helping students learn how to complete the square before taking the square root of both sides of an equation. And this is where you may need additional time for instruction. This is a multiple lesson learning process where students are introduced to the information in chunks. Initially, students complete the process with trinomials where the leading coefficient is 1. And then the process is expanded into what I call big boy trinomials, where a does not equal 1. In the process, students are exposed to solutions that are approximate and exact. And those exact solutions include the use of fractions, which we know are students' favorite. I also want to point out that students have chances to practice some of the new STAR item types, and that there are explicit connections made between approximate solutions and finding solutions graphically through the x-intercepts.